All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Pay It Forward talk. My name is Ashleigh Johnston. I am a life coach for moms raising children that have special needs. And today I am going to be speaking about the failure mentality, or I'm failing as a mother. And that's what I really want to do here in this PIF talk today, or the Pay It Forward talk. When all of these talks are hosted by the Life Coach University, which is a phenomenal platform, paying it forward by offering all of the coaches that you'll find here on this website are coaching for free on this website platform. They're offering it to you. And so all we ask is when you come to these Pay It Forward talks or anything else that you find on this website is that you will pay something forward to someone else in the world, something good, whether that's paying forward this particular talk or doing a good deed. And so that is what we ask you to do as you come and you partake of what the life coaches here offer. So again, my name is Ashleigh Johnston. I am a life coach. I'm an international speaker, and I am focused on helping moms raising children with special needs. I have 2 children that have special needs of my own. I have 3 children total, and it's been a wild ride. And I have really come to love and appreciate the person that I have become in this process, and the privilege that I have of observing who my children are becoming through this process. It's really something very, very special. But something that really hindered me in appreciating this process in the beginning of this journey for me was this mentality and this limiting belief that I was a failure as a mother, that I was failing because my child was not thriving. Now, listen, I do think that you can measure some moments of parenting as failure, right? I'm not saying that we could never fail as a parent. I think there are indicators and things you can look at, including how your children are doing, to indicate whether or not you feel you are thriving or not thriving. Like, I don't think that we should just ignore all of those things altogether. But when you are up against something that either you don't know anything about yet, or it's something that's completely out of your control, to use those things as indicators of whether or not you are failing or succeeding as a mother is detrimental to you and to how you're going to pursue your life, to your mental and emotional health, all the things. So let me start by sharing a little bit about my story if you haven't heard it before. So I have 3 children. My first son was born neurotypical, thriving, just ahead of the game, really, in a lot of ways. Fantastic, super fun, and super challenging in its own ways. Come my second child, my daughter, was born, and she was doing great up until 8 months, and then she wasn't gaining weight. She was diagnosed failure to thrive. She was struggling, and what we were doing for her was not working. So eventually it got to the point where they decided we need to dig into this, and we did a bunch of other tests, figured out she was aspirating, meaning that whatever she was drinking or eating, part of it was getting into her lungs. So she was suffering from a low-grade long-term lung infection, which inhibited her growing and her development. So you ended up putting in a tube through her nose and then eventually a tube in her stomach to try to remedy this by getting her the food she needed by bypassing this portion that would get the food into her lungs. And this was something that I was not prepared for, meaning not only did I not know anything about it, but it was not something I had predicted for my own life. I had predicted that my children would develop as most other children develop. And when my daughter started to not do that, I started to wonder what I was doing wrong. I started to wonder why she wasn't thriving. I started to wonder why what I was doing wasn't working. I started to wonder all sorts of things. But in the end, the main conclusion was, you are failing her. You're failing as a mother. This was your job. This is what you wanted to do, was to take care of these little humans and help them thrive. And now one of them isn't. And that sent me for an emotional loop. Big, massive amounts of depression combined with postpartum depression, combined with anxiety about the future. And so all of this was weighing so heavily on me and on my husband that I just decided it would be better for me to become apathetic to the whole situation, to the whole thing, because I did not know what to do with how I was feeling. And I remember a sister-in-law of mine mentioned life coaching and a very specific coach. And so she had a podcast, I started listening to it, and it transformed my life over the next year or so that I listened to it. And I started to apply the principles that I learned there. But this one specific principle is really what helped to shift this rigid thinking about whether I was successful or not successful as a mother. And so that is what I want to share with you today. And in essence, the limiting belief, and it is a limiting, and is that I'm a failure as a mother, actually comes from a set of assumptions that we have about how the world works and how we qualify whether or not we are successful or not successful. So I hope you won't mind if I scroll down here through my notes just to make sure I get you the meat and potatoes of what I want to offer you today. And then I will also not be holding a Q&A at the end of this because of the time restriction that I have this month. And so what I want to offer is for you to reach out to me personally, Ashleigh Johnston coaching at gmail.com. My name is ASHLEIGH, Johnston coaching at gmail.com. Email me with your questions, your requests, your comments, anything that you have to say. And it doesn't matter how old this video is. If you're watching it a month later, a week later, a year later, you can reach out to me at that email. Okay. And I will respond, and I'd love to connect with you. So especially if you're struggling with failure as a parent thinking, because it's not useful at all. So it's based on a couple of different parameters. And the parameters of failure thinking come from the, sorry, not parameters, assumptions. They come from the assumptions that, sorry, one second, let me get there. There we go. It comes from the assumption that your child's results are what define or determine whether or not you are a good parent. And this can go from whether or not they're healthy physically. So the assumption is, if my child is not physically healthy, I am failing as a parent. If my child is not emotionally healthy and stable, if they struggle with depression or anxiety or anything else, I am failing as a parent. If my child is not thriving in society, I'm failing as a parent. Now, please understand there's a nuance here. There are things that you can do to help your child, and your children, you do have a heavy amount of influence on your children. But the determinism idea that your child's life is determined by your actions as a parent is not true. And we can see that by looking at how different children coming out of the same household turn out differently, or how children come from what would be a statistically predictive situation. So say that they come from a very broken household, or they were in the foster system, or were in a war-torn zone or area during their childhood, or any of these other very traumatic things, that we would say that those children would not turn out to thrive in society. But it's not true, because we see children that go through those experiences and they do thrive later on in their life. Okay. So this is how we can know this is a false assumption. The assumption that what you do is deterministic on your children is not a true assumption. Therefore, it's not an accurate measurement for whether or not you are succeeding or failing as a parent, as a mother. Okay. So some of the other assumptions that we can have around that, really that's kind of the core, but each of us will have our very own individual version of what that is. And that's what I want to offer to you to pay attention to, is when you have the thought, I'm failing as a parent, I'm not doing a good job, I want you to stop and ask yourself, by whose measurement? What am I measuring this against? Or more simply, how do I know that I'm failing as a parent? And if the answer has anything to do with the outcome of your child, then you can know I have the assumption that the outcome of my child is what I am measuring my value as a parent and whether or not I'm succeeding. Okay. Now, this can also go in the reverse. If you have a child like my first that is excelling wonderfully and learning well and developing quickly, and it seems to be very sophisticated, that was my first when I knew much less about parenting. But I can guarantee that a lot of his strides had less to do with me and more to do with him. It didn't mean I didn't have an influence. I tried to provide the opportunities that I could. What it means is that it wasn't deterministic, okay, on either side, okay? So with this knowledge, knowing that this assumption is what a lot of us base our measurement system off of whether or not we're a good parent, and knowing that the assumption is incorrect, I want to offer you a new assumption, which is there's no one right way to parent. Okay. There's no one right way to do it. Because when you think you're a failure, what you're searching for is that one right way. If I had done it this way, then it would have changed my child's outcome. If I would have done it this way, then they wouldn't be struggling, then they wouldn't be behind in their development, or they wouldn't have this genetic issue, or they wouldn't have, okay, if I had done it the right way. There is no one right way to do it. Okay. And many, many children across the realm, they will get, have a totally different upbringing, which will be fine for them. And whether that's, and then your child has the same upbringing. Let's say that we could actually do that. Let's say we have similar upbringings, but for one child, it helps them thrive, and the other child, it doesn't. And the assumption here that I want to offer you to work from is that each child is unique. Each child is unique. So what works for one won't work for the other. So there's not one right way to do this. Okay. And the other assumption is that the ultimate outcome of my child's life is not determined by me. Okay. So with these assumptions, the coaching tool that really changed my life was to be able to set new parameters for myself. Because when you think and truly believe that you are failing as a parent, you have a very specific set of parameters in which you are measuring that. For me, and for my daughter, it was her physical health. What I completely ignored was everything that I was doing to try to help her, even though we hadn't figured out yet how to help her thrive in her unique way. So when I got this coaching tool, I realized, okay, what I need to do then, instead of measuring or setting the parameter to measure my success as a parent on something I cannot 100% control. I cannot 100% control my daughter's health. I cannot 100% control her developmental journey and path. What I can 100% control is how I show up as her mom, what I do, the opportunities I provide. Those are the kinds of things that I want to encourage you to set your measurements and your parameters of whether or not you're succeeding. Because what the brain needs is a concrete way at the end of the day when you lay down and your brain starts piling through or filing through what happened that day, it needs something concrete to measure with, and it needs to be something you truly believe in. So for me, what I did is I started to measure whether or not I was succeeding as a mom based on the efforts that I gave that I could control. Was I seeking out resources to help my daughter? Was I trying to educate myself at a reasonable pace, a pace that does not neglect that I have other children or that I have a life or that I have to take care of myself or go grocery shopping? Okay. Was I trying to do research? Was I trying to find resources? Was I putting forth an effort that was realistic for me at where I was? These were the parameters at which I started to measure myself. So at the end of the day, when I laid down and my brain wanted to go to, I'm failing as a parent because my daughter is still struggling, I went, no, right? This is where you retrain your brain. You say, no, I gave my best efforts today, right? And that might look different at different times of the year, at different times of the month. Today, I reached out to that doctor that I said I was going to reach out to. Today, I learned more about the diagnosis that she has. Today, I offered her this much food. Today, I offered her this much water. I made efforts to find the medication that can help her. I am a good mom. Okay? Pay attention to that inner dialogue. So take some time, rewrite the parameters. And that's the tool essentially, is rewriting your parameters for whether you are successful as a parent or not, so that you can not just pat yourself on the back, but you can feel at peace in your own skin with this unique journey of raising a child that is unique. They have unique needs, even unique desires, right? A child that already knows how to speak and walk doesn't desire that thing, but your child does, right? I assume they do. Perhaps they don't, but they have unique desires, and their path will be unique to how to get there, how to become mobile if they can't walk, right? So becoming at peace in your own mind, knowing that you are a successful parent, knowing that your efforts mean something, helps you reach a place of peace. And that peace allows you to access your creativity and problem solving, which allows you to pour more efforts into helping your child, which reinforces the parameters that you have set, proving to your own brain that what you're doing is succeeding as a parent. Okay? I hope that this helps. I hope that you know that your efforts matter, that what you're doing as a mom matters, and that the efforts that you make, even if you think they're small, are helping. Okay, so take some time to be kind to yourself. This kind of self-care is what can shift the tables for you. Remember, you can reach out to me, Ashleigh Johnston Coaching at gmail.com, and I will get back to you there. And please take some time to pay it forward to someone else. Doing service for someone else and being helpful for someone else is amazingly healing and can bring up your spirits. So take some time to pay this talk forward, whether it's this one, another one. Take some time to put the goodness that's in you out in the world to be able to see your greatness. All right, until next time, I'll see you later.